All right, we are live now.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the council meeting for August the 10th to order, please. Could I remind everybody to silence their phones if they haven't done so? I've checked mine, I've done that as well. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples who have been stewards of the land since time immemorial. And as such, we treat the land, its plants, animals, stories, and people with honor and respect. I'll have the playing of O Canada, please. Amber, we don't have anything in our end. This must be the new silent version.
We could sing.
Well, we've lost our clerk.
Hello. Yeah, so Amber's computer crashed. I just asked her, so if we could just give her a couple of moments. We're depending on Microsoft.
Yeah,
So
okay.
hold on, stand by.
Okay, not a chance, Barry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm going to try that again. My computer went down.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
They will have a moment of silence, please. Thank you, everyone. My remarks for today. So good afternoon. I hope everyone is enjoying their summer, whether it be through the monsoons we experienced in July or the traditional heat we are experiencing now. Activity in town has been extremely brisk with what appears to be more and more traffic every year. This year's escalation activity and traffic has coincided with the province moving to stage 3 of the pandemic response. While everyone is very happy to return to a more normal state of activity, we all still need to be very cognizant that the threat of the COVID-19 virus is far from over. Infection rates are spiking around the world, and case counts in Ontario are much higher than a month ago and much higher than a year ago. So I ask everyone to enjoy the current level of activity, but to ensure that it continues, please be cautious and respectful, wear a mask where required, and get vaccinated if medically able. Vaccination clinics are continuing until the end of August at the Bancroft Legion, so please go to the Bancroft Family Health Team website for more information. On the local development front, several projects are underway, approved and commencing in the near future, or in the development approval process. The town continues to be focused on the creation of much needed housing and are happy to see resumption of construction at the old public school site. Work continues to move forward on the community hub / library / affordable housing project in the downtown with an anticipated start date of spring 2022. This will coincide with the reconstruction next year of Hastings Street North from Bridge Street up past Snow Road. Engineering work is well underway, and detailed planning will be centered around keeping traffic and business disruption to a minimum. More details will be forthcoming in the next few months, and I encourage everyone to get engaged as we move through the process. As part of today's council meeting, we'll be holding a public meeting under the Planning Act regarding several rezoning applications. One of the applications is to rezone property adjacent to the Curling Club on Newkirk Boulevard for a much needed 75-unit retirement living complex. This project was previously planned for the town's Block 68 or former IGA property, but after detailed costing and a potentially lengthy approval process, it has been relocated at this present time to Newkirk Boulevard. The town is currently evaluating a proposal for Block 68 from another developer that will not face the same lengthy regulatory hurdles as a residential development would have on this site. The proposed retirement complex on Newkirk Boulevard is part of a wide array of housing needs that the town considers a priority. Continuing with housing, the town continues to advocate at all levels of government for the creation of additional social housing. Hastings County has been very proactive. Hastings County has been very proactive on this front, and we are currently working on a proposal that will hopefully come to fruition. My last comment today deals with the very recent United Nations report on climate change that is once again ringing the alarm bells. We are all witnessing the wildfire situation across Canada, the Western USA and Greece, plus devastating floods in China, Germany, and other parts of Europe. And while our part of the country has more or less escaped any major events, we cannot remain complacent and think we are immune to the same outcomes. If we look outside our windows, we see the many forests and waterways surrounding us, and we need to reflect on what could happen here. So what can we do as a municipality? Excuse me. So what can we do as a municipality? We can take a serious look at everything we do and determine, is there an alternative way that will reduce our carbon output? We can encourage and provide information for new home building and construction projects on building above minimum building code requirements to further reduce energy consumption. We can develop future CIP or community improvement programs that target energy efficiency programs and can make residents aware of various government programs that offer incentives such as recently announced Greener Hope programs. So I task everyone on council and staff to bring this to the forefront and do whatever is in our means to promote this very important issue. Thank you. I'm going to put us on pause for a moment because I think Amber still may be having a computer problem here. So one. Sorry, Amber, I was getting a call from you and I thought you were having computer issues, so. Okay,
All good.
all good. Okay, thank you. So adoption of the open session agenda, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Bancroft is hereby approve of the open session agenda dated August 10th, 2021 as presented. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Councillor Barry McGibbon, seconder, Councillor Andrew Kaufeld, all in favor? So passed, thank you. Declaration.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Sorry. If I want something pulled out of 17 under the consent agenda, do I do that now or do it at the time of then?
When we get to the consent agenda, we'll do it at that point in time, okay?
Thank you. Sorry, yep, thank you.
Not a problem. Declaration of pecuniary interest and nature thereof.
Councillor Wiggins, I would like to declare a conflict of interest on 6B and 7A.
6B and 7A. Okay, very good. So when we get to that, Amber, you will appropriately mute and do whatever you need to do. Okay, thank you. Okay. So at this time, we will go into a public meeting. So as required by the Planning Act, the purpose of the public meeting is to inform the public and hear representation in respect of proposed bylaw for the purpose of rezoning lands within your municipality. Those persons or public bodies who provide verbal submissions in respect of the proposed bylaw will be requested to provide their name and address for recording in the minutes. Verbal submissions may be recorded in the minutes and will assist council in making a decision on the proposed bylaw. Applications will be heard in the order in which they appear on the agenda. Resolution before us, be it resolved, the Council of the Corporation of Town of Bancroft is hereby moved into public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act for the purpose of hearing support and or objections for rezoning applications within the municipality. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Councillor Miles, Councillor Tracy McGibbon, all in favor? Pass, thank you. So the first one on our docket today is zoning bylaw amendment application 004 2021. The file description, the owners is 1529036 Ontario Limited, Agent Gardens Development Inc., Bill Mardimae. The legal description is part of Block A, Registered Plan 1133, Town of Bancroft, County of Hastings. The purpose and effect of proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands from the residential type 1 R1 zone to the multiple residential exception 12 holding R3-12-8 zone to permit the construction of a 75-unit senior citizen residential dwelling. The applicant also seeks to recognize site-specific zone regulations for the multiple residential use. So could we have the planning coordinator's report, please?
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors, staff, applicants, and members of the public. The town has received a complete zoning bylaw amendment application to rezone the aforementioned lands from residential type 1 to multiple residential exception 12 holding. The subject lands are located on the north side of Newpark Boulevard, adjacent to the Bancroft Curling Club. The undeveloped 2.21 acre property is in proximity to full municipal services and is located in a primarily residential neighborhood. The applicant is proposing to build a 4-story senior citizens residential dwelling containing 75 dwelling units. The main floor will also include a number of amenities to support the residents, which will include a communal dining room. A site plan and a typical floor plan is attached to the report to illustrate the proposed development. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands from residential type 1 to the multiple residential exception 12 holding zone to permit only a senior citizens residential dwelling and an accessory building or use to the principal use, and also to recognize a number of proposed site-specific zone regulations, which are illustrated in the table in my report. So the number of dwelling units in a principal dwelling will be a maximum of 75. The number of parking spaces in the exception 12 holding zone will be 45 minimum. Minimum lot area will be 8,000 meters squared. The rear yard, 5.5 meters from 10 meters. The interior side yard, 7.6 meters from 8 meters. The building height, 14.4 meters from 11 meters. The lot coverage will remain the same. And the minimum dwelling unit size will be at 23 meters squared. All other provisions of the multiple residential zone and the zoning bylaw as amended shall apply to the land zone multiple residential exception 12 holding zone. The largest request for relief is in the number of parking spaces. In order to determine the required parking for the proposed development, staff applied the residential parking space requirements, which requires 2 spaces for every dwelling unit as per section 3.25.3a of the zoning bylaw. Because the zoning bylaw is silent on a parking rate for a senior citizen multiple dwelling of the proposed size. Therefore, a total of 150 required parking spaces was calculated. The applicant has provided a parking rate of 0.6 parking space per unit, which provides 45 parking spaces, including 4 accessible parking spaces. The applicant did not provide at the time a justification for the applied parking rate of 0.6 parking space per unit. However, staff do appreciate that the applicant has experience developing and operating similar facilities in Ontario. It is also noted that the zoning bylaw does provide parking spaces for a senior citizen multiple dwelling of up to 30 dwelling units. Parking spaces shall equal 50% of the number of dwelling units. Furthermore, for a senior citizen's multiple dwelling of between 30 and 60 units, parking spaces shall equal 40% of the number of dwelling units. The community development advisor for the town of Bancroft believes that when the zoning bylaw was adopted in 2006, that a senior citizen multiple dwelling of more than 60 units was either not anticipated at the time, or the bylaw inadvertently omitted a parking regulation for a senior citizen multiple dwelling greater than 60 units. Based on the parking space requirements provided for a senior citizen multiple dwelling, the community advisor suggests that as the number of dwelling units increases, the percentage to determine the parking space requirements would also continue to decrease. If this principle was applied to the proposed development, the required parking would be 30 spaces or less. The applicant is confident that 45 parking spaces provided for the proposed development are more than sufficient for the number of residents and staff. The property is in an area of subject to site plan control. Therefore, the applicant will be required to submit a site plan with a number of justification studies, which will address the technical implications of the proposed development. A holding provision will ensure that the owner will adhere to the site plan control bylaws guidelines as per bylaw 41/2004. The holding provisions shall be removed by bylaw when the owner has entered into a site plan and/or site plan agreement with the town. Notice of the public meeting was circulated as prescribed by the Planning Act. Comments were received July 26, 2001 from the County of Hastings Senior Planner and are attached to this report. It was recommended by the senior planner that the applicant provide a parking study and servicing study in support of the zoning bylaw amendment application. Further comments from the county senior planner also included a list of required studies to be completed in support of the site plan. In addition, staff have received a written comment from Paul Pierce in support of the proposed zoning bylaw, which is attached to this report. Another written comment was received from Yvonne Heath in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw and is attached to the report, and brought up items such as increased traffic, noise and dust, being that did not believe that the development fit the character of the neighborhood, and believes that single family dwellings are preferred. At this time, no other written submissions in respect of the proposed zoning bylaw have been received. The bylaw to amend the Town of Bancroft zoning bylaw number 27, 2006 has been drafted and is on today's agenda for consideration by council. Town staff recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw application be approved, subject to the holding provision as presented. The agent is attending today's meeting and has a presentation for the proposed development.
Thank you, Robin. So now we'll hear from the agent, Bill Mardimae. So Bill, are you hiding? Are you there?
No, I'm here, yeah, Mr. Mayor. I'm just trying to figure out how to get my picture. I think that is my picture on the screen, actually. It's a good.
I've got you blank right now. You know,
Yeah.
your Hollywood Square is not filled.
Okay, it says you cannot start your video because the host has disabled it.
Okay.
So I'm willing, but I'm not able.
Amber?
Can you try now?
Oh, okay.
There we go.
There. Can you see me now?
You're there now.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thank you for the opportunity. I just have a brief presentation, just as a bit of background. And we're in the retirement business. We have small retirement homes, dotted throughout southern Ontario. And we're proposing a 75 suite independent living retirement building in the location on Newkirk. Our market study has showed that there's definitely a need for such a facility in your community. And attached with it was a site plan that shows a general configuration of the building. It's not finalized. And also a floor plans that shows in general the location of the suites and where the common elements are. We followed and had previously read the report from the planning department, and we're in agreement with the contents. There was an attachment with a letter from the county. Just like to make a few comments on that. First of all, most of the items that were brought up are really issues that will be dealt with at site plan. Their first item about a parking study. We actually run these buildings, and we're the last people in the world who want a shortage of parking. And we're very comfortable with that number. And that's similar to projects that we've done, Perry Sound, Simcoe, the Halliburton. We have one under construction right now in Ingersoll, just near London. So I'm not sure where they're coming from on this. And then, because if we had a study done, they would just reiterate what we have done in other facilities, and that it is adequate. The other comment was asking for an archaeological assessment. So we're not sure of the purpose of that. We always do an environmental phase 1 report, and we believe that would encompass these requirements. It's just a need for another study. I don't know why. And then on the last one, they're asking for a record of site conditions, which is unusual because we're in a residential zone and we're maintaining a residential zone. And it's kind of silly, their comment that said in case there was an asphalt batching plant on the site. Now, I believe the property has always been zoned residential. So I just would request that any of these items that they're asking for, everything can be cleared up, but they'd be done through the site plan process, which we would be starting on after the zoning is approved. That's just a brief outline, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. So, thank you.
So thank you, Bill. So those points that you brought up, I'm sure that town and county staff will work through those with you. And as you say, you do have experience with respect to the parking. And as Robin pointed out in her dissertation there, the parking seems to percentage-wise falls in line with what is in the zoning that's in existence, except it stopped at 60. So there probably just needs to be some extrapolation on that right there. So at this time, there will be an opportunity for the public to voice either in favor or opposition. But at this time, would council like to ask any questions of clarification? Seeing none, is there any members of the public, not to express in favor or opposition, but just looking for items of clarification?
Yeah.
And who would I have? Hi there, could you identify yourself?
Hey. Yes, hello. My name is Heather McCall, and I own the house at 30 Hastings Street South in Bancroft.
Okay.
The McCall family, well, my grandmother actually was born in 1909 in Bancroft. And
Okay, I'm just going to stop you for a second. So,
oh, yes.
So if it's a point of in favor or opposition, there's a separate
Opposition.
that we do that. This is just if you need any. This is just if you need any clarification.
Yes. Just one thing. I was on the impression that at the beginning it was 3 stories, so it's 4 stories high. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, through, yes, it's always been a 4-story building.
Okay, I don't know why. I thought through reading it was a 3-story.
Okay.
That's the only thing. With the traffic and the parking, I just want to ask about the parking. Have you taken into account with the parking spaces, visitors, delivery trucks, staff?
Mr. Mayor, through you, of course we have. We're in this business. This is what the buildings that we build and we operate. We don't just build them and walk away. Let me go to the last one first, delivery trucks, which always seems to be a concern. They would be, in a building like this, there'd be 2, maybe 3, I would say mainly 2 deliveries a week would be coming in. And there's probably 1 garbage pickup in a week. That's all that the truck traffic is. And yes, we have taken, there'll be a portion of residents that may drive, there'll be some staff, and then there'll be visitors. And we have taken all that into account, and those hours are somewhat complementary, because whereas the main staffing is on the day shift, a lot of the visiting has to be on the evening shift when the staff is lighter. And what we do in our existing buildings, we actually run traffic counts. We'll run them periodically 3 times a day, and then we'll actually measure how many parking spots are there and how many are occupied. And like I said, we do not expect to exceed it. And like I said, we're the last people in the world who want to have a shortage of parking, which is an inconvenience to our residents or staff or visitors.
Is there any other points of clarification that you require at this time? Okay, so if you wish to speak in favor or in opposition, you can come back when we get to that section, okay? Yeah, okay. Okay, no problem there. Any other requests for clarification on any items?
The Vandermeers have indicated that they have a question.
Okay.
Your worship.
Sure. Fire away.
Okay, hi there.
Good day.
We are not opposed, and we live at 14 Newkirk, so we will be directly affected by this project. But we do have an interest in knowing if there is a site plan and where the entrances and exits for this particular site would be, as that would affect the comings and goings of our driveway. So we'd be interested in knowing where
the position of the building,
where the position of the building is going to be, and how that would affect the flow of traffic in front of our home.
Okay, that's a good question. So Robin, can you put the site plan up that we were provided with?
I believe so. If you just give me a moment to find it.
because we didn't get that.
Yeah, we didn't get a site plan. We just got a plot map of where it was actually located, not the actual construction of it.
And while Robin's getting that, I was confused on one point for a while there until I saw the piece of property directly across from your house come up for sale. So I believe the majority of, or quite a big area of what people refer to as the pit area actually is part of a residential lot that backs onto Hastings Street.
That's correct.
Yes, okay. I was confused because I thought that the property swung over quite a bit more.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, so Robin, I don't know, can you point anything, or do you have the ability to point here?
I'm not sure if I have the ability, but the site plan, I've shared the site plan.
Okay, so if you
that
can,
we've currently received. This is not the approved site plan.
I will
Right.
try to print that.
sure. So it
And I can
appears,
send that to the Vandermeers if they like.
If you would, please. And you have my email addresses, so you could just send it to us electronically. That would be great.
so Robin, I believe in the top right-hand corner, just outside of the building, is that the curling club property showing there?
That's correct.
So
Yeah.
this building is skewed towards to the curling club.
Yes.
And it would appear to me that then and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, that the entrances would appear to be more up that way than down the lower part of the hill. Is that correct, Bill?
Mr. Mayor, yes, if you're looking at the drawing on the screen, the curling club is like, if you follow Newkirk along the bottom of that drawing, you'll see, so the continuation would have the curling club. So we're trying to keep our entrance as far north as possible, as close to the curling club. And of course, there are some, fairly severe grades that we have to match to. So that's gonna really propel us to move in that direction. There'll be nothing at the south end. I assume you're down closer to Hastings then, at 14 Newkirk?
That's correct.
Yeah, we would be at the far end of the lot from you.
So will you be removing the grade, or will you be building into the grade? Or I see, like, or is everything going to be at the top level of this?
Everything will be at the top level. So I think I know your house. It's not the corner house, it's the next one in. If you're
That's
looking
correct.
across the road, you'll see no change across the road from you.
Okay,
Good to know.
good. Thank you.
No other questions?
Not at the moment. No, thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have questions of clarification? Okay, seeing none. We'll now go to the next session, which is a call for public input. If a person or public body does not make verbal submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to council before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So, Robin, I believe that you mentioned that there was one written submission in opposition of the proposed amendment.
That's correct, Your Worship. We've received one written opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment from Yvonne Heath.
And I'm assuming all members of council have received that and reviewed it. Thank you. Is there anybody who wishes to do a verbal submission in opposition of the proposed amendment? Yes, please identify yourself again and go ahead.
Yes, my name is Heather McCall, 30 Hastings Street South. Would you like me to explain why?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
All right. There's a problem with the road, Hastings Street South. The problem has been in existence well before I was born. But when I was a little girl, I remember walking up the street to cracked sidewalk, potholes, because my grandparents lived at 30 Hastings Street South. I've addressed the problem to council in the past. Traffic on that road is out of control. People mistake the road for 62 South. My husband was there on the weekend cutting grass, and he said he counted more than 20 people, vehicles. We've seen transport trucks headed down 62 South. They turn around at the retirement residence, or they turn around further down Newkirk, or further down, there's a place on the side of the river that you can pull over. they always come back and ask, where's 62 South? That's one problem, traffic. How much traffic will be coming down 62 South? Do you suppose that the traffic is going to flow 37 east to turn up 28, I'm sorry, to turn up to the arena to pull into this new building? Or am I going to see dust, dirt, 401 traffic pulling up, going up Newkirk to this new building? Now, that road was originally, because as I was saying about my grandmother being born in Bancroft in 1909, living there her whole life, she chose to build the house on that street. My great-grandfather thought she was crazy. It was never a great road. The road originally was a milk run, like nothing. And it's still narrow. It's still a terrible road. My grandmother's very generous. She let the hospital build and take a part of her property while they were in existence. I don't want to look across at a 4-story building up on the hill. It's a quiet residential area. The retirement residents that took over the hospital did a lovely job. They didn't build 2-3 stories. It fits in with the look of the area. It's very chateau-like. Of course, I'd love to see changes on the street in the buildings, but my husband and I are hoping to retire to Bancroft, and I don't want to look at a 4-story building up on that hill. So I am opposed. Now, the other thing, sewer, sewage. I did talk about staff. So the only thing I can propose is if you shut off Newkirk Street, where Hastings Street South goes, but I still don't want to look at the building, the 4 stories, but I don't want to have the traffic. I have too much traffic with everything. Narrow road, no sidewalks. Actually, it's a travesty to the town of Bancroft, having that beautiful senior residence on 30 Hastings Street South, that the seniors can't even walk on that road.
Okay, thank you.
There, that is my beef. So
Okay.
I am totally opposed.
Thank you. So it sounds like you have an issue right now, regardless of a senior's residence there or not.
Yes, anything 4 stories or anything.
No, I said regardless of the senior's residence. So what I'm going to, starting next year, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, Hastings Street North is being redone entirely. And I would ask the manager of Public Works, who is in attendance today, to make note of the comment about traffic mistaking Hastings Street South for 62. Hopefully,
I have made comments about that before, and all I've been told by council is it is a provincial problem. The signage is provincial. I would want anyone on council to please take the trip, pretend you're not from Bancroft, and try to find where 62 South is.
Right. Okay.
On the signage.
So duly noted. Duly noted, and we will look at that with respect to the upcoming work that we're doing on the other end there. So, okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to do a verbal submission in opposition of the proposed amendment? Okay, seeing none. So Robin, you mentioned there was one written submission in support of the proposed amendment?
That's correct, Your Worship. We received a submission from Paul Pierce in support of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you. And is there anybody that wishes to do a verbal submission in support of the proposed amendment? Seeing none? Thank you. We will move on to the next item. The decision process comes after we've gone through all of the different applications before us at the present time. So next item on the docket is zoning bylaw amendment application 005-2021. The owners are Stephanie and Nathan Meshke. Municipal address is 671 Hastings Street North. The legal description is part of Lot 1, Concession 16, Parts 1 and 2, Plan 21R-19621, Geographic Township of Faraday, now Town of Bancroft, County of Hastings. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to satisfy a condition of severance for file number B9720 and file B9820 as follows: that the severed and retained lands be rezoned from the local commercial exception 3 holding C3-3-H zone to residential type 1 R1 zone to permit the new lots to be developed with single detached dwellings. So at this time, the Planning Development Coordinator will present her report to us.
Thank you, Your Worship. As a condition of provisional consent, the town has received a complete zoning bylaw amendment application to rezone the subject lands from local commercial exception 3 holding C33H zone to the residential type 1 R1 zone. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to satisfy condition number 5 of provisional consent for file number B9720 and B9820, which is to create 2 new lots. The subject lands are located at the intersection of Hastings Street North and Maxwell Settlement Road. The applicant is severing 2 residential building lots with frontage on Maxwell Settlement Road. The retained lands front on Hastings Street North and are built out with a single detached dwelling and an associated accessory building. A site sketch of the subject land is attached to the report. The subject lands are currently zoned local commercial exception holdings C33 zone. The owner intends to develop the new lots with single detached dwellings. As a condition of consent, the severed and retained lands are to be rezoned to the residential type 1 zone to permit the existing and proposed use of a single detached dwelling. It's noted that the character of the surrounding area is predominantly residential. Notice of the public meeting was circulated as prescribed by the Planning Act. The county planner has offered no objection to the proposed rezoning, and to date, no other written submissions in respect of the proposed amendment have been received. The bylaw to amend the Town of Bancroft's comprehensive zoning bylaw number 27/2006 as amended has been drafted with support from the County of Hastings Planning and Development Department and is on today's agenda for consideration by council. The zoning bylaw amendment will satisfy condition 5 of provisional consent for files B9720 and B9820 respectfully. Therefore, staff recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application be approved. That completes my report, Your Worship.
Thank you. Do any members of council have any questions or clarification? Seeing none, is there any members of the public that require clarification on any items? Okay, seeing none. You mentioned, Robin, that there were no written submissions in opposition of the proposed amendment.
That's correct, Your Worship. Just comments from the County of Hastings offering no objection.
And at this time, we'll do a call for any verbal submissions in opposition to the proposed amendment. Seeing none. There were no written submissions in support either for this rezoning?
No written submissions in support were received, Your Worship.
And this time we would ask for if there are any verbal submissions in support of the proposed amendment. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is zoning bylaw amendment application 007-2021. The file description and the owners are Erica and Chad Hall. Legal description, part lot 8, concession 10, part 1, plan 21R-25597, geographic township of Dungannon, now town of Bancroft, County of Hastings. The purpose and effect: to rezone the subject lands from rural RU zone to rural exception 12 RU12 zone, to provide relief from section 3.1.1B to permit the construction of an accessory building not attached to the principal building in the front yard. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will also provide relief from the minimum building height for an accessory building not attached to the principal building from 4.5 meters to 5 meters. So this time we'll have the planning development coordinators report, please.
Through you, your worship, the town has received a complete zoning bylaw amendment application to rezone the subject lands from rural RU zone to rural exception 12 RU 12 zone. As indicated by the mayor, the purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is to permit the construction of an accessory building not attached to the principal building in the front yard, and to allow for a maximum building height for an accessory building not attached to the principal building of 5 meters from the required 4.45 meters. The subject lands are approximately 30 acres in area and are located on the north side of Highway 28 East, approximately 1 kilometer west of the intersection of Detler Road. The lands were created by consent and are currently being developed with a single detached dwelling. The applicant is proposing to construct a detached garage in the front yard. A detached garage is an accessory building which is incidental and subordinate to the principal use. The zoning bylaw provides that any accessory building which is not part of the main building shall be erected to the rear of the projected front or exterior side wall of the main building, which would require the proposed detached garage to be constructed in the side or rear yard. It is noted that in Schedule B of the County of Hastings official plan, the subject lands are identified as being located within the Stratum 2 deer wintering area. In support of the consent application to create the subject lot, an environmental impact study was prepared to confirm that there will be no potential impacts from the proposed development on the identified deer wintering area. As a condition of consent, the applicant entered into an environmental impact study with the town to implement the mitigation measures of the environmental impact study. As per the development agreement, the proposed development of the subject lands is to be limited to a small footprint, which has already been cleared where the lowest deer activity is anticipated. In this regard, the proposed location of the detached garage in the front yard is appropriate and complies with the provisions of the relevant development agreement. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will permit an accessory building not attached to the principal building in the front yard, notwithstanding section 3.1.1b. However, the minimum front yard setback of 20 meters as provided in section 5.2A4 will be maintained. As previously mentioned, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment will also provide relief from the maximum building height for an accessory building not attached to the principal building. The applicants have requested a maximum building height of 5 meters from the required 4.5 meters. Notice of the public meeting was circulated as prescribed by the Planning Act. Comments have been received from the County of Hastings Planning and Development Department, offering no objection to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. To date, no other written submissions in respect to the proposed amendment have been received. The bylaw to amend the Town of Bancroft's comprehensive zoning bylaw has been drafted and is on today's agenda for consideration by council. Staff recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application be approved. And that concludes my report, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any questions of clarification from members of council? Seeing none. Any questions of clarifications from members of the public? Seeing none. The call for public input. If a person or public body does not make verbal submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to council before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So Robin, you said there were no written submissions in opposition for the proposed amendment?
That's correct, Your Worship.
At this time, we'll ask for a call for any verbal submissions in opposition to the proposed amendment. Seeing none, there were no written submissions in support of the proposed amendment?
Correct, just the comments from the County of Hastings offering no objection.
Thank you. And now I'll ask for a call for any verbal submissions in support of the proposed amendment. Okay, seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to item E, the next item, which is zoning bylaw application 008-2021. File description owners, Michelle and Jeff Eclue, municipal address 25377 Highway 62 South. Legal description, parts of lot 26 to 28, concession 1, part 1, plan 21R-23058, geographic township of Dungannon, now town of Bancroft, county of Hastings. Purpose and effect, to rezone the lands from rural RU zone to rural exception 13 RU-13 zone to permit a seasonal dwelling. At this time, we'll have the planning and development coordinators report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The town has received a complete zoning bylaw amendment application to rezone 25377 Highway 62 South from the rural RU zone to the rural exception 13 RU-13 zone. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands to permit an existing seasonal dwelling. The subject property is located on the west side of Highway 62 South and was created by consent in 2010 and is approximately 106 acres. In 2013, a building permit was issued for the construction of a seasonal dwelling on the subject lands. The owners recently requested a final inspection, and during that inspection, it was determined by staff that the subject lands are currently zoned rural RU zone, which does not recognize a seasonal dwelling as a permitted use. The owners were therefore advised by staff to submit a zoning bylaw amendment application to rezone the subject lands to permit the seasonal dwelling. Therefore, the subject lands are to be rezoned from the rural RU zone to the rural exception 13 RU-13 zone to recognize the seasonal dwelling as an additional permitted use in the rural exception 13 RU-13 zone. Land zoned environmental protection zone are to remain zoned environmental protection zone. Notice of the public meeting was circulated as prescribed by the Planning Act. The County of Hastings planner has offered no objection to the proposed rezoning. To date, no other written submissions in respect of the proposed rezoning have been received. The bylaw to amend the Town of Bancroft's comprehensive zoning bylaw has been drafted and is on today's agenda for consideration by council. Staff recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application be approved to bring the subject lands into compliance with the zoning bylaw. And that completes my report, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification from council members? Seeing none. Any questions or clarification from members of the public? Seeing none. Call for public input. If a person or public body does not make verbal submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to council before the bylaws pass, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Calls for written submissions and oppositions, proposed amendment. Robin, you said there are none?
None received, Your Worship, in opposition.
This time we'll make a call for any verbal submissions in opposition to proposed amendment. Seeing none. Call for written submission support of the proposed amendment. Robin, there were none other than the
That's correct, Your Worship. There were no written submissions received in support other than the county's comments offering no objection.
Okay, thank you. And calls for verbal submissions in support of the proposed amendment. Seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to item F, which is zoning bylaw amendment application 009-2021. The file descriptions are Arthur Heinzman, Allison Heinzman, Gerald Heinzman, and Susan Mathers. Municipal address is 3158 4D Highway 28 East. Legal description, part of lot 23, concession 13, parts 2 and 8, plan 21R-12887, geographic township of Dungannon, now town of Bancroft, county of Hastings. Purpose and effect is to rezone the subject lands from rural residential RUR zone to rural residential exception 11 RUR-11 zone to permit a semi-detached dwelling and to apply the zone regulations listed in sections 9.2A to a semi-detached dwelling. So at this time, we'll have the planning development coordinators report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. As indicated by the mayor, the town has received a complete zoning bylaw amendment application to rezone 31584D Highway 28 East from the rural residential RUR zone to the rural residential exception 11 zone. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands to permit a semi-detached dwelling and to apply the zone regulations as provided in section 9.2A to the semi-detached dwelling. The subject property is municipally known as 31584D Highway 28 East and is located on the south side of Highway 28 East. The property is approximately 1.45 acres in area. The applicants obtained a building permit in 2019 to construct a single detached dwelling with an attached garage. In 2020, the building permit was changed to allow construction for plumbing and HVAC rough-in for a second dwelling unit, as well as fire separation. Construction shall comply with the zoning bylaw 27/2006. Therefore, the property owners applied for a zoning bylaw amendment to complete the construction of the second dwelling. The subject lands are to be rezoned from the rural residential RUR zone to the rural residential 11 RUR 11 zone to permit a semi-detached dwelling as an additional permitted use and to apply the zone regulations listed in section 9.2A as follows. Lot area 4,000 square meters, lot frontage 60 meters, front yard 20 meters, interior side yard 3 meters, rear yard 10 meters, exterior side yard 20 meters, lot coverage 30%, building height 11 meters, and off-street parking to be provided in accordance with section 3.25. I'd like to note that those are the zone regulations for a single detached dwelling in the rural zone and will be applied to the rural residential exception 11 zone. Notice of the public meeting was circulated as prescribed by the Planning Act. The County of Hastings planner has offered no objection to the proposed rezoning. To date, no other written submissions in respect to the proposed amendment have been received. The bylaw to amend the Town of Bancroft's comprehensive zoning bylaw has been drafted and is on today's agenda for consideration by council. Staff recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application be approved to bring the subject lands into compliance with the zoning bylaw so the property owners may complete construction. Thank you, Your Worship. That completes my report.
Any questions from members of council? So I do have one question, just a point of clarification, please. This sounds like a secondary suite. How is it differentiate? What's the differentiation between a secondary suite and in this case, a semi-detached, as you're referring to?
Yeah, so we have yet to bring forward the bylaw to adopt secondary, or as they're referred to now, additional dwelling units in various zones of the town's zoning bylaw. So this has been done in advance to permit essentially a second dwelling, so that this will allow the property owners to complete the construction of the dwelling prior to the town adopting the additional dwelling unit bylaw, which will amend the zoning bylaw to permit additional dwellings in zones, which would include the rural residential zone is anticipated.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or clarification from any member of the public? Seeing none, call for public input. If a person or public body does not make verbal submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to council before the bylaws pass, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Were there any, so call for written submissions in opposition to proposed amendments. Were there any, Robin?
There were no written submissions in opposition to the proposed amendment, Your Worship.
Call for verbal submissions in opposition to the proposed amendment. Seeing none, support, call for written submissions in support of the proposed amendments. Were there any, Robin?
There were no written submissions in support of the proposed amendments other than the county's comments offering no objection.
Thank you. And call for verbal submissions in support of the proposed amendment. Seeing none, we will move on then. So at this time, we will adjourn from the public meeting. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Bancroft is hereby adjourned for a public meeting and reconvene the regular meeting of council. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Councillor Miles and Councillor Wiggins, all in favor, please. Thank you. So passed. Item 7, planning decisions following the public meeting. Council's decision to refuse or pass an application to amend the zoning bylaw is to include a brief explanation of the effect, if any, that the written and verbal submissions relating to the applications had on the decision. First item is 7A, again in the order that they were presented previously in the public meeting. Zoning bylaw amendment application 004-2021. The draft resolution before us is be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of Town of Bancroft is hereby approved of zoning bylaw amendment application number 004-2021 to rezone lands legally described as part of Block A, Registered Plan 1133, Town of Bancroft, County of Hastings, from residential type 1 R1 zone to multiple residential exception 12 holding R3-12-H zone. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Barry McGibbon. Could I show of hands for all in favor, please? 2, 3, 4. It so passes. Thank you. Item B, zoning bylaw amendment application 005-2021. Resolution before us is be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of Town of Bancroft is hereby approved of zoning bylaw amendment application number 005-2021 to rezone lands legally described as part of Lot 1, Concession 16, Parts 1 and 2, Plan 21R-19621, Geographic Township of Faraday, now Town of Bancroft, County of Hastings, municipally known as 671 Hastings Street North, from local commercial exception 3 holding C3-3-H zone to residential type 1 R1 zone. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that one, please? Councillor Wiggins, seconded by Councillor Barry McGibbon. Is there any questions on that before we call for the vote? Seeing none, all in favor, please. So passes. Thank you. Item C, zoning bylaw amendment application 007-2021. Resolution before us is be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Bancroft is hereby approved of zoning bylaw amendment application number 007-2021 to rezone lands described as Part Lot 8, Concession 10, Part 1, Plan 21R-25597, Geographic Township of Dungannon, now Town of Bancroft, County of Hastings, from the rural RU zone to rural exception 12 RU-12 zone. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Councillor Caulfield and Deputy Mayor, are there any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor, please. So passes. Thank you. Item D, zoning bylaw amendment application 008-2021. Resolution before us is be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Bancroft is hereby approved of zoning bylaw amendment application number 008-2021 to rezone lands described as part of lots 26-28, Concession 1, Part 1, Plan 21R-23058, Geographic Township of Dungannon, now Town of Bancroft, County of Hastings, municipally known as 25377, Highway 62 South, from rural RU zone to rural exception 13 RU-13 zone. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Councillor Barry McGibbon, Councillor Caulfield, are there any questions on that? All in favor, please. So passes. Thank you. Item E, zoning bylaw amendment application 009-2021. Resolution before us is be it resolved that the council of the corporation of the town of Bancroft is hereby approve of zoning bylaw amendment application number 009-2021 to rezone lands described as part of lot 23, concession 13, parts 2 and 6, plan 21R-12887, geographic township of Dungannon, now town of Bancroft, county of Hastings, municipally known as 31584D, Highway 28 East, from rural residential RUR zone to rural residential exception 11 RUR-11 zone. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Councillor Miles, Councillor Barry McGibbon, any questions on that? All in favor? So passes. Thank you. We have a delegation that is coming up, but we will take a 5-minute break and resume at that time. So thank you. Hey, Val,
Yes?
I just wondered how the bugs were up on the eagle's nest today.
Great,
No problem. Okay.
no problem.
Okay. Are we ready to resume, Amber?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so item 8 on the presentation, we have a delegation from Food Cycle Science. I'm not sure who's presenting, Amber.
Alex Heyman will be presenting.
Hello, Alex. Welcome. Very interesting.
Hello, Mayor and Council.
Yeah, I looked through your presentation there, so we're going to give you the floor and then let you go through it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen for this presentation. I ask on all of these calls if someone wouldn't mind confirming it is indeed coming through.
It's there.
Perfect. So for today, I'll plan to speak for hopefully not more than 10 minutes, and then I'll allow a few minutes for questions. To kind of frame the conversation, our request at the end of this presentation will be that Council receives the report and refers it to staff so we can work with staff on a potential recommendation for a later Council meeting if there is interest. So I'm here today from Food Cycle Science. We're a company out of Ottawa, Ontario, and we're 100% focused on the food waste problem here in Canada. Much of our food currently is not consumed and ends up in landfills. We've recently been partnering with a number of municipalities in Canada, in Ontario, BC, and the Northwest Territories on municipal food waste solutions, as well as in the direct-to-consumer sector with some partners, including Vitamix, Breville, and Sage. Then on the business side, we work with some big brands like Apple, Sobeys, and BGIS, as well as having a line of commercial food waste equipment. But what links all that together is a focus on the food waste problem. As I mentioned, there's a lot of food waste and most of that is avoidable. Right now, anywhere from 25 to 50% of household waste is organic material. It's heavy, it's yucky, it's unpleasant to deal with, and it's a very significant environmental concern, particularly with methane gas, which is what is produced when food waste breaks down in our landfills. From a municipal perspective, Canada's municipalities are predominantly responsible for waste management, with much of our food waste going into landfills where they break down and create methane gas. Not only is it an environmental concern, but there is a significant cost given that our landfills have limited capacity or that many municipalities need to pay private sector haulers to take away our waste. Also from a community standpoint, food waste in the garbage means it needs to be picked up more often, or residents need to make more frequent trips to the waste site. Having food waste in the garbage also leads to odors and attracts a number of animals and other pests. So overall, it's a pretty big problem for municipalities. People often tell us, well, hasn't this problem already been solved? Can't we get green bins, or doesn't everybody backyard compost? Well, those are two great solutions, but they're not for everyone. Green bins tend to work best in large, dense cities where there's economies of scale. And backyard composters, while great, they can be somewhat labor intensive and can be an attractant for animals and other pests. While we do commend everybody who does compost and encourage them to please keep doing so, composting, unfortunately, is not for everybody, and the rates of composting have been relatively low or stagnant for a very long time. And of course, there's a landfill, which is not an ideal place for our food waste to end up. So against this challenge, our company has offered a technology-focused solution that's all about making diverting your food waste clean, easy, and convenient. We've developed a countertop home appliance about the size of a bread machine, where you take your food scraps, you put them in the bucket, you put your bucket in the unit, and a few hours later, you have a nutrient-rich soil amendment that can be used for a variety of purposes. Unlike traditional composting, our product can also accept meat, some bones, dairy, and a variety of other products. It takes about 4 to 8 hours and uses less than a kilowatt hour of power to transform a kilogram of food waste into about 100 grams of nutrient-rich soil amendment. From an environmental perspective, using the food cycler is a reduction of about 95% of the CO2 equivalent compared to sending your food waste to the landfill. And this does take into account the carbon cost of consuming electricity based on the CO2 per kilowatt hour we have here in Ontario. From an economic standpoint, it's significantly less expensive to divert your food waste on site rather than paying to have it transported and disposed of at a landfill site. In terms of regulatory and social impact, here in Ontario, there's either regulations in place or coming with regards to food waste, and municipalities are being encouraged to come up with diversion options to reduce the amount of organics going to landfill. We hear from many residents that want solutions for their food waste that go beyond being offered a backyard composter, and these residents are looking to their local government to come up with solutions. We think food waste is really that low-hanging fruit with regards to increasing diversion from landfill. We've been deploying these solutions for about a year now in partnership with Canadian municipalities. The community furthest along with this is Nelson, BC, which has 250 households using our product. They've diverted approximately 25 tons of food waste from landfill in a 3-month period. And diversion continues until this day. The residents in this pilot were overwhelmingly happy with the results of the project. You'll see some stats for that on the right. And against these results, the City of Nelson has recently voted to put a food cycler in every home as the city's organics diversion solution. So against this, these positive results, this has been noticed by the federal government, and we've received funding from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada under the umbrella of the Impact Canada Food Waste Reduction Challenge. We made a submission regarding the use of our products in partnership with Canadian municipalities to act as a municipal food waste diversion solution. And as part of this challenge, we've been tasked with finding Canadian municipalities that are interested in partnering with us to test our solution. What that means is doing a pilot project that lasts approximately 12 weeks, where residents purchase a subsidized food cycler from a municipal office and use it in their homes for a period of 12 weeks, followed by doing some surveys and data collection to estimate the amount of food waste that was diverted. And that data goes to the municipality and also to the federal government for their records. There's a number of pilot project sizes we've been proposing recently. They're all geared around the population size. I believe Bancroft is a little under 3,000 residents, in which case we'd recommend either a 36 or a 100 household pilot project, which requires a municipal investment of $5,000 or $12,500 to cover about 20% of the cost of doing the projects, with the balance being covered by resident costs and investment from our company and the federal government through Impact Canada. That is the end of my presentation. Again, our request would be that council accept this presentation, and if there is interest, that it be referred to staff for further study ahead of a potential recommendation being made. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm open to any questions anyone may have.
Great, thank you. If you can knock, there you go, we're back there. So very interesting, very interesting. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Wiggins, you've tackled this issues several times, so I thought you might have something to ask on this. You're still muted.
Try that.
There you go.
Yes, another great looks initiative. I'm definitely interested in this type of problem we have in town. If I can, you'd run by those numbers a little quicker than I could write them down, but I believe it was a $5,000 investment by the municipality for 36 houses for 12 weeks. Is that correct?
That is correct. I will add that with that investment at the end of the 12 weeks, the residents are able to keep the machines, they would own them, and they could continue to divert their food waste well beyond the length of the pilot.
So now also, if I can follow up a second question on that. So the idea is that the town would buy these units and then we would sell them? Or is your idea that the town would just give them away?
So both options are possible. Our recommendation is that the town would purchase them and benefit from the bulk discount plus the subsidy from the federal government, apply a small municipal subsidy on top of that to bring the price down in order to make it accessible to the vast majority of residents at that $150 price point. These do retail for approximately $500. But the level of investment, we recommend $100 from the municipality, but we would defer to staff for a recommendation on how to structure a specific municipal program that would work for your residents.
Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alex, have you found the program most successful by we buy them, sell them, or we get a whole bunch of names and then like go from the back end first, get the commitment from everybody and then order the product. And then we know the minute they arrive in our door, they're out in our community. Second would be if we do this in 3 months and it's hugely successful, are we, do we have the ability to come back to be part of the program again, where maybe we get some of the subsidies, some of the other grants that would allow us to make it acceptable for some of our municipality? Can we bump it back up after we've had one good run through?
I'll apologize. I think my connection lagged. I heard the second question, but I missed the first. Would you mind repeating your first question?
She said, no. Would you give them for free?
Unfortunately, we can't.
No, that wasn't her question. That was mine. Go ahead, Val.
No, that's not what I said. No, what I said was, with your experience so far of this program, do you have more success by the municipality just saying, sure, we'll buy them and then trying to move them? Or as a municipality, should we get out there and do some surveying and find our, if the number was 100 people, get 100 people to commit to it and then buy the product and start the program? Which way has worked best so far for other municipalities?
So in all the municipalities we've worked with, they've purchased the units and then resold them. In every project we've done so far, they've gone through all their units and have waiting lists of residents that want to get one at the subsidized rate. I think at 100, it's a little bit harder to get there just based on your population size, but I can say with every confidence at the 36 household level, you'd have no problem selling them. And with regards to the funding, as part of this Impact Canada program, it's a 3-stage funding program. So we have to submit the data from these initial pilots to the federal government. And if we're successful, there'll be a second round of funding. We don't know exactly what that'll look like, but what we've been writing is that any municipalities that are partnered with us on pilots will have the right of first refusal on any future funding that comes our way for these programs.
So the premise is to start with the pilot, you evaluate, do your data collection, and then take it from there.
Exactly. If it's successful, the results should show that, and that would be the time to think about scaling it. But let's start small, see if residents like it, and then build from there.
Well, and if I just may finish, super cool. I hope they become $100 to buy for every household everywhere, and that these are in everybody's house. Becomes actually just like you put in an HVAC, now you put in a food cycler. It's just something that becomes part of building a home in order to deal with waste. Really cool product.
Thank you.
So Perry, Manager of Public Works, would you like to comment? Are you there, Perry? I think he froze. Okay. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to add to this presentation? Wayne.
If I can, I believe our Manager of Public Works ordered backyard composters, which are I think an essential thing, trying to accomplish the same results that this gentleman's proposing. Only he's doing it electronically, we're doing it naturally. But I believe we sold at $68, I think the cost was, and I think we sold 20. So to reach out at 50 and try to sell 36, I think that would be a pretty long reach. However, we'll let staff work on that.
I believe, Wayne, my opinion on that is that a lot of people don't take up backyard composting, not because of the cost, but because of all of the points that were made in the presentation about labor intensive and attracting animals and et cetera, et cetera. So I just know from my perspective, I would find this type of a system much more user-friendly, and the results I'm gathering seem to be rather quick, that you can use the byproduct you know, as opposed to very quickly, as opposed to waiting for the whole compost cycle, if I'm correct.
From what he said, that's what I understand also, and I think that is a great advantage. But I mean, if it works that way, why doesn't the company let us get 36 people in order direct from him? Why do we have
because the way the program, the subsidies is set up, you have to do the pilot in order to get the data, and then for them to submit, and then for it to come back for hopefully further subsidies down the road. So it's a process predicated on the trial program. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, so within the current program we're in, we do need to partner with Canadian municipalities to benefit from this funding. If residents did want to purchase one on their own, they can definitely go to Vitamix.com and purchase one. Though in partnership, we can achieve a lot of economies of scale and help really bring down the cost to residents, which is why we've taken this municipally focused approach.
Yeah. Councillor Miles, you have another question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in the winter, my mind is spinning like crazy. So first of all, I could throw everything in there, Alex, except for a few bones. Is that what you said?
That's correct. The only thing you can't process is very large bones, like a T-bone steak or something, and some very hard pits like peach pits, but everything else is pretty much good to go.
And what do I do all winter with my composted dirt? Do I bin it? Do I just dump it on the ground? Do I fire, is there a process where what I generate all winter, because we have 3 feet of snow, what am I going to do with all the stuff I generate all winter?
What most people do is they'll store it during the winter. A typical household might only create 5 to 10 gallons of the soil amendment during winter, because it is reduced by about 90% versus the raw food waste. And then come spring, you might mix it into your backyard composter if that's something you have, or into your garden. We're also exploring other uses for the material, such as pelletization for home heating. This is a very energy-rich biomass, but the most common for sure is to use in gardening or landscaping applications.
If our municipality makes a decision to buy 36 and in a certain period of time, we still have 10 left, or we have half of them left, do we have to sell them to people within the municipality? What if we say we need to move the product? So, we sell it to Hastings Highlands. We see if one of the other, do we have to keep the product within our municipality?
So within the scope of this project, we do ask you to try and keep it within the municipality. If you can't sell them within your municipality, it could be opened up to neighboring municipalities. And we also offer a buyback clause as part of all our municipal agreements. So if you aren't able for some reason to sell any units, we will buy them back less a very small restocking fee. So you're pretty protected in case something does go wrong, but I'm proud to say it's never happened. We've had 2 municipalities with populations of about 500 and 800 respectively that both have waiting lists after purchasing 36 units. So based on your size, you could definitely do 36, possibly even 100 if there is interest.
Okay, great. So is there any, Charles?
Yes, just wondering, this sounds like a really feasible idea. Could it come back to committee of the whole?
So what we'll do is we'll put forth the resolution and hand it over to staff, and then staff can bring it, collect some more information and bring it to committee of the whole. As you said. Okay. Okay, so the resolution that says here, be it resolved, the Council of the Corporation Town of Bancroft is hereby received a presentation from Food Cycle Science for information purposes, and I'll add to that, and that staff be directed to work with the company and bring back to committee of the whole for further discussion. Could I have a mover on that, please? Deputy Mayor, and seconded by Councillor Miles. All in favor? Great, pass. So Alex, thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I appreciate your time.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we will move on to item 9, minutes of previous sessions. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Bancroft is hereby approve the minutes of the meeting of councils held on June 8, 2021, June 21st, 2021, and July 19, 2021 as presented. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Wiggins and Councillor Tracy McGibbon. Is there any errors, omissions, comments, questions on any of those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, please? So passed. Thank you. Meeting of standing committees and verbal updates. A, Committee of Adjustment. Be it resolved, the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Bancroft is hereby approve of the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held on June 17, 2021 as presented. Councillor Wiggins, you'll move that. Second it. Could I have a seconder on that, please? Councillor Barry McGibbon. Councillor Wiggins, was there anything that you wanted to speak to on that at all, or is it all self-explanatory?
It's pretty all self-explanatory and everybody has it. I'd ask to answer any questions anyone had or attempt to, that's for sure.
Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor, please. So passed. Thank you. Okay, where are we here? Item B, Committee of the Whole. First resolution, be it resolved, Council of the Corporation of Town of Bancroft is hereby approve the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on June 21st, 2021 as presented. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Miles, Councillor Caulfield, any questions or comments on anything within those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? So passed, thank you. The second resolution is be it resolved, the council is hereby approved that any funds gained through the sale of the 1994 pumper truck be allocated to the fire reserves and are designated to be used for future equipment. Could I have a mover and a second on that? Councillor Wiggins, Deputy Mayor, any discussion on that? Anybody want to add to anything? Makes sense to me. So all in favor? Thank you. Pass. Bancroft Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee. Be it resolved that Council of the Corporation of Town of Bancroft is hereby approved of the minutes of the Bancroft Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee meeting held on June 23rd, 2021 as presented. Would you like to move that, Deputy Mayor? Yes, seconded by Councillor Wiggins. Would you like to speak to that at all, Charles?
Yes, thanks, I will. First of all, thank you to Councillor Wiggins for chairing that. I had the town at a sort of a quick notice. Some of the things that came up from that, as you see in that resolution, is They've asked the public works manager to paint all of the stop blocks that have not been painted. We also received the North Hastings Regional Plan for the OPP governance. The committee accepted it, but they certainly had some issues and concerns about not some things in there that were not in there that they felt they should be. So they deferred that until September's meeting, and they've also asked the province for an extension on that to adopt that rural plan. Also, there's a letter forward. I think it's on 13D or no 16J in regarding the governance, the new governance model that's coming out that the province has been working on and that we have agreed to as well. It explains quite well and in detail of what is expected of a person sitting on that governance. And I think that's, I believe that's all that I have. Any questions?
Councillor Wiggins, did you want to add anything to that as you chaired that meeting?
No, I think he covered it very well. We discussed it after, and I think it was all covered good in there.
Okay.
If there are any other questions, I can try and answer them. But
Councillor McGibbon.
I guess when you're talking about like the traffic flow, and I see lately we've had a lot of obstruction in town for vehicles turning into maybe fast food restaurants, and then it shuts our whole town down. And I'm concerned about that because there's people are passing in the turning lanes, and I would like to see the OPP maybe enforce the obstruction of traffic or put some pressure on people for obstructing traffic, I guess, in our downtown area.
So are these legitimate left turn movements, or I'm sort of?
Yeah, they're turning left, but say for instance, there's a fast food hamburger joint, and the whole downtown through two sets of lights aren't moving because the drive-through line actually goes out onto the street.
Ah, okay.
And so actually, to me, I think it's a real safety concern because people are trying to pass in the turning lane, and then other people are pulling into the turning lane, and it's like a real concern of mine.
Mm-hmm. Just if I might add to that, Barry, we have also asked that Director of Public Works, in discussion with engineers doing the engineering on that street for next year's construction, we're looking at no left turns going north of Madawaska Street. So you're not crossing, you're not going to cross 2 lanes of traffic. They're going to discuss that and see if it's possible. But yeah, you're quite right. It's sometimes they get hung up there, and it's. I saw in fact, I just saw last week where that one restaurant, I mean, it was part of the traffic was going into McDonald's. It would really slow things down.
Yeah, I got out of my vehicle, walked up the street, and asked them to be courteous. There was over 100 cars lined up, and they were wanting a treat, I guess. And I thought, why not just park your car and walk to the restaurant? You know, we have to be respectful, and I'm not sure if we need some signage there just to make that known to people or what. I don't know, but anyways.
I think part of the issue is when those establishments were built, they severely underestimated the amount of volume.
For sure.
One in particular was out of sync within months of it opening up, you know, so. Matt.
I just want to comment. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I want to comment. I did have an opportunity to see an OPP officer activate his lights and siren to clear that exact area that you're talking about. So they are aware of it, and I believe that was the staff sergeant that did that. So hopefully that gets handed down to the other officers as well.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. So.
Barry has comments, Paul.
Yes, Barry.
It's frozen.
Well said, Barry. Well said.
Real good job.
Good job. We'll let Perry come back later, and assuming he doesn't freeze, and we'll do that. So anyway, all in favor of that resolution, please? Thank you. And the follow-up one, which
Of the back street.
Oh, sorry, Perry, you were totally frozen. So
Sorry. Well, the sun's coming out, so my internet's getting a little bit better now.
yeah, okay.
I think the suggestion we should make, whether it's through bylaw or however we approach, but places of that nature, they should have their drive-through designated lines coming off of the back street, off of Cleek Street, because then they can park quite a number of cars.
I think we get the drift.
On the in town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perry, you were at 33 and a third RPM there, but we got the idea. we got the idea. So
okay, good.
No, but I think that's something we should look at. But of course, signage would be involved, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, the second resolution, which the deputy mayor did point out in his report, was be it resolved that council is hereby direct the manager of public works to paint stop blocks in areas within the town that do not have existing stop blocks. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please, on that one? Councillor Wiggins and Councillor Miles, Councillor Wiggins, all in favor on that, please. So passed. Thank you. Downtown Enhancement Committee, be it resolved that council, the corporation of town of Bancroft is hereby approve the minutes of the Downtown Enhancement Committee meeting held on June 9th, 2021 as presented. Councillor Caulfield, you'd like to move that? Seconded by Councillor Miles. Councillor Caulfield, would you like to bring council up to speed on, where that process is at with the Downtown Enhancement Committee?
Yeah, so we didn't have quorum, so we didn't actually make any decisions or recommendations at that meeting. We did have some general conversations. Perry was hoping by the mid to end of July to have some concrete examples of things to bring to us to consider, to prepare a report to come forward about what we're ultimately going to do with that downtown space. I do need to follow up with Perry and find out where we're at that and get the next meeting scheduled. But we did take a hiatus for July based on kind of that in the middle piece of not really a whole lot to move forward with, recognizing that we're going to get really busy in August and September with decisions and recommendations and all that kind of stuff. So I will follow up with Perry to figure out where we're at with that and get the next meeting scheduled.
Thank you. Any questions on that from anybody? So just to reiterate my opening comments at the beginning of the meeting, there is really encouraging all residents, especially the downtown property owners, to get engaged and to follow the process. So anyway, all in favor, please. Passed. Building Property and Bylaw Committee, be it resolved that council of the corporation of town of Bancroft is hereby approve the minutes of the Building Property and Bylaw Committee meeting held on June 7, 2021 as presented. Councillor Wiggins, you'll move that. Seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Wiggins, would you like to speak to that, please?
Yes, it was an initial meeting where we just kind of got our marching orders as to what the committee's supposed to look at and do. We have a number of projects kind of we're spearheading back through staff, being to concentrate on one or two rather than try to cover the whole gamut. The main right now is a few bylaws on be brought forward, so they'll bring them forward to the next meeting. There is a few ongoing one. I think the one committee, the one bylaw they have, we've agreed that it'll come right straight to council rather than to speed it up rather than coming. But we're looking at our town-owned facilities as to where they fit in the long range, how they will address the asset management, et cetera, et cetera. So it's I think it'll be an interesting committee going forward. But right now, there's not a lot of per se concrete things we're working on.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody? Seeing none, all in favor? So passed. Thank you. Item 11, minutes of local boards and joint committees. Item 1, Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance, be it resolved, the Council of the Corporation Town of Bancroft is hereby receive the minutes of the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance meeting held on May 13th, 2021 as presented. Councillor Wiggins, you'll move that? Seconded by Councillor Miles. So Councillor Wiggins, maybe you could bring us up to speed on that and anything else that's ongoing with the Trails Alliance.
Well, due to the flow of information back and forth and times for each to get them approved, etc., they are very late coming through. However, I will say that we're working hard on behalf of the trails. We have more passes sold this year than in previous years. The biggest project we got ongoing right now is the wire or the bridge at Madoc by the Crystal Lake there. That's a huge undertaking to the both levels of government. We got funding for that, and we've also got funding to improve for a 5-year plan to repair and maintain the trails. So there's lots on the go right now. We're still trying to work other agreements with other clubs, etc., associations, but at times they get very frustrating. But anyway, having said that, we're trying to work and keep the trails open and keep the tourism dollars coming into the area. And I think if you look on the weekend, there's pretty well a steady stream on those roads. So on those trails, I should say. So I think we're accomplishing quite a bit. But anyway, any questions, I would gladly try to field them.
Any questions? Councillor Barry McGibbon.
Actually, it's more of a comment than it is a question. I just wanted to say how valuable that ground asphalt was on our railway. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the bicycle traffic and the foot traffic on the Heritage Trail within that corridor that was covered with ground asphalt has multiplied probably 10 times. And I just think it's nice to see more people using it. And the riders are respecting their speeds more because there are more pedestrians, so they're not flying past the houses. And so I think it's win-win in all facets of the trail use.
Okay, I'll take that back to the committee, and we can thank our manager of public works for that. He works close with the association, and that was his possible solution to help with the dust situation and the speeding, etc. So there were a few glitches when we put it down, but I think we've ironed them out in the meantime. But it's something that moving forward. Another item that they're looking at through, again, our manager of public works has done for years is the rubber belting that was on Millennium Bridge. They're looking at trying to use that on bridges in the future to try to keep them maintained for the carbide runners at whatever on the snow machine that are hard on them. But anyway, he's a great asset and works great with the association. So, Perry, thank you.
Thank you. So all in favor? So passed. Thank you. Item B, Bancroft Business Improvement Area Board. Be it resolved, the Council of the Corporation Town of Bancroft is hereby receive the minutes of the Bancroft Business Improvement Area Board of Management meetings held on May 27th, 2021 and June 24th, 2021 as presented. Could Councillor Caulfield, you will move that? Seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, you'll move second that. Councillor Caulfield, would you like to speak to this at all?
Sure. So just a couple of highlights. Phase 3 of the Digital Main Street funding is out there and released, and we've probably done the recruitment now for the new squad member, but I would encourage any local businesses who haven't taken advantage of that yet to look into that program if they don't have a good, strong digital business presence. They can help you set up your website. You can apply for grants to assist with equipment, all that kind of good stuff. So I think the digital world is here to stay, even if all the doors get unlocked and life goes back to something like normal. We're all pretty used to doing digital and telephone things now, and I don't think it'll revert quite as much as some folks might like or choose. So getting on board and online is probably the way to continue to grow your business moving forward. The BBIA has engaged the services of a local IT person to revamp, rebuild the Discover Bancroft website to get that back up and going and updated with current information. And I know that there was a meeting to discuss the memorandum of understanding.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where that came from. Continue on.
There was a meeting between PAC and the EO, I believe, to review the memorandum of understanding about who's going to do what and how that's going to happen and how those workflows will work. So I think that's about it. I haven't seen minutes from the July meeting, and I wasn't able to attend that meeting for personal purposes. But I didn't hear of anything that I needed to follow up on. So I'm assuming it was relatively uneventful.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? So passed. Thank you. North Hastings Arena Commission, be it resolved that Council of the Corporation Town of Bancroft is hereby receive the minutes of the North Hastings Arena Commission meeting held on July 21st, 2021 as presented. Councillor Miles, would you like to move that, please? And seconder, Councillor Wiggins, would you move that, please? Now, Councillor Miles, I believe Councillor Wiggins subbed for you on that meeting, did he not?
He did, and so I would like to thank Councillor Wiggins. Thank you very much. We had a fairly substantial decision to make, and I was unable to attend. We had submitted through some correspondence, sort of what the, what the town of Bancroft felt, and but of course it's up to the Arena Commission. But Mr. Wiggins went there, and I was very grateful. So thank you very much for your time, Wayne. The group has been, as many of you, if you've been attending and watching and hearing, there has been a proposal for the Bancroft Family Health Team to bring a gym and a rehab to the second story of the arena. And we have struggled to sort of have the funding, and it's been a real challenge just to sort of get even engineers things done, electrician reports done. And so it was recommended that maybe we should form a partnership, because the Arena Commission has an unusual governance that states, they're sort of responsible for the inside of the building. But when we have such limitations, when we're ready for such a large project, we felt that we really needed some help. So there was a recommendation brought forward to the Arena Commission that would suggest that the commission would work in cooperation with the town of Bancroft, which would give us more hands on deck, a little more support to further engage some of the studies to make sure that this the Bancroft Family Health Team can go forward. So the town of Bancroft has now taken on a fair chunk of the responsibility of looking at these projects, including a project excuse me, that might bring some solar energy to use the top of the building to generate some solar energy, which also would be a pretty cool project, but they seem larger than life for when it comes to the Arena Commission. So we have an agreement to work with the town of Bancroft in cooperation, and I think it is going to be a tremendous success.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Item D, Bancroft North Hastings Heritage Museum Board. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Bancroft is hereby receive the minutes of the Bancroft North Hastings Heritage Museum Board meeting held on June 29, 2021 as presented. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Wiggins, Councillor Miles. Councillor Wiggins, would you like to speak on this, please?
Sure. Thank you, everyone. The museum is moving along. We were in COVID, but as you know, COVID, so now we are now open Tuesday to Friday. I believe the hours from 10 to 4. So following all COVID protocol, health and safety protocol, but we are working very diligently to keep the museum as an active tourism spot for the town of Bancroft and area. We have a number of items on go. We have a book that we're working on. There was a grant for that, which will be a second Memories of the North. The genealogy office is not open at the present, but the actual building is. I want to thank the town staff for the effort. They've got 3 or 4 major problems we've had there. And anyway, it's ongoing. I think you all have the minutes. if there's any questions, I would be glad to try to answer them or find the answers.
Any questions from anybody? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Pass. Item 12, unfinished business, comprehensive fee schedule. There's 2 resolutions here. We'll deal with the first one first. Be it resolved, the council has hereby received a comprehensive fee schedule for information purposes only. Could I have a mover and a seconder to put it on the floor, please? Councillor Barry McGibbon, Deputy Mayor. So Bill, we will hand this over to you, I'm assuming.
Well, to Amber first, at least.
Okay, to Amber first then.
Yeah, so Committee of the Whole received a report on updates to the town's fee schedule on June 21st and recommended that council approve the updates. Staff are recommending that a bylaw to amend bylaw number 03/2016 be passed to reflect updates made to the schedule. The fees that have been amended or added are outlined in the report. Many of the town's fees fall under different legislation and therefore cannot be passed under one bylaw. Because of this, staff have consolidated the fees into the comprehensive fee schedule. That is not to be adopted under bylaw, but will be used as a user-friendly tool. And the schedule is inclusive of the department, fee description, fee charge, associated bylaw, and if applicable, the associated form.
Okay. So we'll do the first part first for the information purposes, and then we'll put the second motion on the table, which is what you just basically said there. So all in favor of motion A, dealing with this, please? Passed. Thank you. The second resolution that was with us is be it resolved that council hereby adopt a bylaw to amend bylaw number 03/2016, being a bylaw to establish fees or charges and requiring payment for information and services. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Caulfield. Okay, now, does anybody have any questions with respect to anything in particular? But we did pretty well deal with this at Committee of the Whole, but that was a bit ago. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please. So passed. Thank you. Item 13, business A, 2021 building permit year-to-date comparison report. Be it resolved, the council of the corporation of the town of Bancroft has hereby received the 2021 building permit year-to-date comparison report for information purposes only. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Wiggins, Councillor Miles, and Matt, would you like to speak to this report, please?
Sure.
And also, we always like your crystal ball of what's to come and not in the report yet. So.
Well, I don't know about a crystal ball, but I can report on what has taken place so far. Hope you've had an opportunity to read through the report and take a look at the numbers. The numbers are looking pretty favorable right now. Very busy with building permit applications coming in, for both residential and commercial. And as you can see from the numbers, there's a significant increase over the last couple of years in total value, as well as at this point, the residential units. So that's good. There's still some applications that are under review at this point for more single-family dwellings that will be issued shortly once the remaining items have been received. I've also received a lot of phone calls, actually not just myself, but the planning department with regards to property sales and inquiries about how people can utilize land for a building, and the intent from a lot of people is to start building fairly soon. So I guess there's your crystal ball, Paul. So
that's what I was looking for.
Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, no, I like the way you sort of expanded the report now to include the multi-res, et cetera. So yeah, that's great. That's great. So.
Yeah, as you can see, I did put the number of multi-res in there. There is a section for the number of multi-residential added as well. So some of those are renovations to existing multi-residential buildings. And so that's why they would show up as a permit under multi-residential. But there is a line there for the number of multi-residential units being added.
Great, that's perfect. Thank you for doing that. It gives us a real good picture. Any questions for Matt? Seeing none, all in favor? So passed. Thank you. Let me just click in the right spot here. Item B, custom fundraising solutions, VS Marketing Service Agreement, the resolution before it. Be it resolved, the council is hereby waive the corporation of the town of Bancroft procurement policy with the purpose of entering into a service agreement with VS Marketing for the capital fundraising campaign design work RFP number 05-2021 and custom fundraising solutions, payment not to exceed $52,600 before HST. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please, to put this on the floor? Councillor Tracy McGibbon, Deputy Mayor. Bill, would you please provide council with the background on this?
Amber again. Thank you.
Okay, forget it, Bill. Then what? Okay, Amber, go ahead.
So a library core committee was formed this past spring, and we have been working with VS Marketing on the logo design work that was approved by council in accordance with RFP 05-2021. The North Hastings Library Build project must undergo a capital campaign to raise approximately $600,000 toward the build. Since staff have already been working with VS Marketing, staff sought a proposal from VS Marketing for the custom fundraising solutions. VS Marketing would be offering their capital campaign services over a total of 9 months, which aligns well with the town's timeline for the library project, with an initial construction commencing spring 2022. And due to the time-sensitive nature of the capital campaign, staff are recommending that council waive the town's procurement policy in its entirety by resolution for the purpose of entering into a service agreement with VS Marketing, payment not to exceed $52,650 before HST. And the procurement policy provides that council authorization must be granted with the acquisition cost greater than $40,000. And in addition, purchase amounts over $40,000 are to go through an RFP. And the procurement policy allows for council to waive any part of the policy or the policy in its entirety by resolution for a specific purchase or project.
Thank you. I'm not sure. Did you mention the source of the funds?
I did not.
Okay, so I know for sure that 40,000 was from straight from the library, a reserve they had. I guess I'm a little foggy. Is the entire 52 or the town providing the 12?
So that's something we actually didn't decide, but absolutely $40,000 is coming from the library's capital reserve, and there's 12,000 in advance that would be part of our project cost. That's where it would hit in terms of our capital cost to build the library.
Okay, good. Thank you for the clarification. Is there any questions on this? Seeing none, all in favor? So passed. Thank you. Item C, Bancroft Lions Club Road Toll Fundraiser Request. Be it resolved, the Council of the Corporation of Town of Bancroft is hereby approve of the Bancroft Lions Club request to conduct a road toll fundraiser on Station Street in front of the Royal Canadian Legion, branch 181, on Saturday, October the 9th, 2021, between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. with proper public health and COVID-19 protocols in place. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Councillor Wiggins, seconded by Councillor Miles. Is there any comments or questions on this? Seeing none, all in favor, please. So passed. Item D, request from North Hastings Community Trust. Resolution before us, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of Town of Bancroft has hereby received a signed request from North Hastings Community Trust for consideration. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Caulfield and Councillor Miles. So I had a comment on this, and I thought this should be referred to the fire chief who looks after our parks, et cetera, for him to come back with his thoughts and recommendations to a future meeting. So that was my thought on this. Did anybody else have any other comments on this? Yes, Councillor Wiggins.
I agree. We should let our parks manager look at these to decide. The only concern I have is if we start allowing one sign and it grows, and where does it stop? So I think that's a decision that he can guide us on going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with your comment there. So Councillor Caulfield.
About a week after this letter came in, I saw that the Eagle's Nest group had posted an article that they had placed a sign acknowledging the Algonquin community and the history, the Indigenous history of our area on the Eagle's Nest. So I wonder if this is a bit of a duplication. My other comment was that we have no idea what this sign looks like that they're proposing either, or what the content of it is from this letter.
So I agree with you. I saw that letter afterwards, and I thought the Eagle's Nest is a very appropriate place, you know, for it, et cetera. So, and as a fire chief is sort of over both of those areas, I thought it would be appropriate to pass it on to him and to come back with a recommendation to council. Anybody else? So the consideration will go to the fire chief. So all in favor with that, please. Thank you. So passed. Highway Gardens Center sign rental request be resolved that council of the corporation of the town of Bancroft hereby received a sign rental request from Highway Garden Center for consideration. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that one, please? Councillor Wiggins, seconded by Councillor Miles. Would anybody like to comment on this, please? Councillor Miles.
I think we just want to make sure that he makes it big. Use the whole thing so it doesn't look like just something in the middle or something at the top or something on the bottom. Ask Ed to put a big, huge sign right up there and cover the whole lamppost so it looks all finished like one big sign.
If I can, I'll comment. He planning on putting a sign, something like similar like last year, I think. I'm not sure exactly where the plans are with the staff. However, he did tell me plus a second that is going to advertise the fact that he's going to have fall services up there to his other spots. So I think it's a good idea to cover up the dilapidated looking sign with something nice. And for
Deputy Mayor? You had a comment, Deputy
Yeah,
Mayor?
the question I've got is, he doesn't operate out of there anymore, so is it, I mean, you need to get a permit for it anyway, but is it permissible for him to put a sign there that, where I thought it was, you had to have it on your own where you were doing your business? So
And I believe, I can't remember, Charles, but some member of staff did give a reply to something to that nature, and I can't remember which member of staff it was. The other thing, as I mentioned in my opening comments, and maybe we could also defer this to staff, is that we are actively in the midst of pursuing an opportunity on this property, which I did mention to the applicant here. So I think my suggestion would be that we would just refer this to staff just to confirm what the policy is, because I can't remember who sent the note on this. And hopefully by that time, we'll have some direction on whether the property is indeed moving into different hands.
Good idea.
My understanding was that if anything happened on that property, that the sign would be removed as per our request.
Yeah, but I thought there was some type of a policy, as Charles mentioned up front there, about. And
I believe that's also on the books, but I also believe it's being violated in a number of other locations too. So.
Right, but for town, are advertising on our property?
No, but where they're advertising businesses that's not on their property.
Right, but this is our property here. So anyway, any other thoughts on this? So Charles, do you have anything you have any sort of thought you might have on how we should pursue with this to verify?
No, I think as you said, give it, pass it back to staff, and I'm assuming he would need a sign permit, normal procedure to get a sign permit. And looking at that sign permit, I'm assuming it would be Matt that would, okay it and just simply go from there. If it's permissible, then fine. If it is,
right.
Fine.
I see Matt's not here anymore. Now that I remember, I think it was Matt that put the note out saying that he felt his direction was a particular, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, we'll vote on, this says for consideration, so that means it would go to staff anyway. So all in favor of consideration as outlined in the, okay, so pass.
Yep.
And staff can review it, et cetera. Item F, National Forest Week. Oh yeah, this is a long one here. So it says here that letter received. So the draft resolution, whereas covering 66% of the province and 71.1 million hectares, Ontario's forests are an indispensable source of ecological, cultural, health, social, and economic benefits. And whereas its forests are also located on the traditional territory of diverse Indigenous nations and provide nourishment and cultural value to these groups, whereas Ontario's forests surround Bancroft and other valuable recreational opportunities for Bancroft residents and visitors. And whereas Bancroft Forest green spaces are not only a center for physical, mental, and social well-being, and also a contributor of essential ecological services for the town, such as pollution reduction, stormwater retention, cooling, and wildlife habitat. And whereas National Forest Week is an annual one-week campaign which recognizes its critical contribution to Canada and its people, this year National Forest Week will be celebrated across the country by individuals and organizations with the theme of Our Forests, Continue Giving. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Bancroft is hereby declare September 19th to 25th, 2021 as National Forest Week in Bancroft. Could I have a mover on that, please? Council, I was going to you first anyway, Councillor McGibbon, Barry McGibbon. And a seconder, please. Councillor Miles, Barry, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, I think it's great to recognize the importance of the forest in all sectors. And one thing that I'd like to, a fact file, in North America, we consume 13 pounds of wood a day. And worldwide, everybody consumes about a pound a day. So it's pretty important to our lifestyle. We wear it, we eat it, and we use it, so it's pretty important. So anyways, great to recognize it.
Good, thank you. All in favor? So passed. Thank you. So item 14, business arising from notice of motion, none. Notice of motion, none. And item 16, consent agenda for information. The resolution before us, I'll read it and then I'll ask if anybody wants anything pulled out. Be it resolved that the items listed under the consent agenda, item 16B to 16A1 be received by the Corporation of Bancroft for information. Councillor Miles, where was it that you wanted something pulled and separated?
Not here.
Not here. Okay, the second section. Okay. Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Councillor Miles, Councillor Kaufeld. Did anybody, I know even though we haven't pulled anything there, did anybody want to speak or mention to anything on there? Seeing none, all in favor, please. Consent agenda for support. Be it resolved, the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Bancroft is hereby support the items listed under consent agenda items 17B to 17E, and further that a letter of support be prepared for the appropriate minister organization outlining Council's report. So, Councillor Miles, which item did you want removed?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull out 17B.
17B. So it will then read items 17C to 17E, and we'll deal with B after. Okay, so moving her in a seconder on 17C to E. Councillor Miles, seconded by Councillor Tracy McGibbon. Is there any comments that anybody would like on any of those items? Seeing none, all in favor? Hands up. Thank you, so pass. So now we will go back. Be it resolved, the Council of Corporation Town of Bancroft is hereby support item 17B of the consent agenda, and that further letter of support be prepared to the appropriate ministerial organization outlining council support. I'm assuming you will move this, Councillor Miles, and second it by Councillor Wiggins. So Councillor Miles, I will give you the floor on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just don't want to be in support of this letter. I think that for most people who are aware, I'm sure, but for those who are not, municipal land transfer tax, which is paid upon the purchase of your property, and those costs are rising every day as housing costs are rising everywhere. This has been a continued conversation within the real estate profession, and the Ontario Real Estate Association about 5 or 6 years ago now fought very, very hard. If you go back and look at some of the headlines at the time when Premier Wynne, it was brought up that, you know, the only municipality in the entire province right now that charges an additional land transfer tax to the one that you pay when you purchase is the City of Toronto. So this is a tax grab, in my opinion. I understand that it is a way to generate funds, but we are already one of those municipalities where our tax rates are a little higher than everybody else. And I would not want the town of Bancroft to be looking to tax people twice for the purchase of their home when they come here. So I didn't want to just, flow through this, supporting this letter of any municipality asking for additional land transfer tax, but I really wanted to say it out loud to all of us. I really don't think we should charge an additional. It's double dipping, if you ask me. You already pay your land transfer tax to the province. I don't think the municipality should collect it as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? So if we vote, when I call for the vote, if you vote yes, that means you're supporting the ability for an additional land transfer tax. And if we vote no, then we are following the comments of Councillor Miles. So those who vote in favor, could I see a hand, please? Those against, could I see a hand, please? Pretty unanimous, so defeated. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Item 18, community announcements and events. Does anybody have anything that they would like to speak on? I think we're so used to not having community events that we'll look forward to the day when we can speak on this again. Okay, seeing nothing. So Perry, I see you've come back. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I was on my, the internet was unstable, so I flipped to my phone.
Okay, so I can't remember if we heard everything from you or if there's any comments you wanted to make on anything that we had chatted about in the meeting that you were actually looked like a mannequin there for a while, so.
No, that's fine. I can reserve comment because I'm not sure what you heard and what I said. So.
Okay, good. Okay, sounds good. Okay, item 19, bylaws. Be it resolved, the following bylaws be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, be finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding. Bylaw number 59, 2021, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 03, 2016, being a bylaw to establish fees or charges and requiring payment for information and services. Bylaw number 60-2021, a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 27-2006 as amended. Bylaw number 61-2021, a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 27-2006 as amended. Bylaw number 62-2021, a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 27-2006 as amended. Bylaw number 63-2021, a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 27-2006 as amended. bylaw number 64-2021, a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 27-2006 as amended. Bylaw number 65-2021 being a bylaw to authorize the corporation of the town of Bancroft enter a transfer payment agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario for the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, ICIP, COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Stream, Local Government Intake. And bylaw number 66-2021 being a bylaw to authorize the corporation of the town of Bancroft to enter into a transfer payment agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario for the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, ICIP, Community Culture and Recreation Stream Project. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please?
No, thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
We could pull bylaw 60-2021 and do it separately as Councillor Wiggins cannot vote on that one.
Yes, you did tell me that, and I told you to remind me when I forgot.
Thank you.
So, sorry, which one? It's 66 that we're pulling?
No, 60-2021.
60, the second one, okay, good. Okay, so all of those except 60-2021. So could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Caulfield and Deputy Mayor, is there any questions on any of those? Seeing none, all in favor? So passed, thank you. So the next one, which we will do separately, is bylaw number 60-2021, a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 27-2006 as amended. Could I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Councillor Miles and Councillor Barry McGibbon. And would you remind me again, Amber, why we were doing that separately?
Councillor Wiggins declared a pecuniary interest for item.
Right. And he's now off the screen. So yes, okay. See, I told you I'd forget. Okay, all in favor of that one? Okay, great. Thank you. You can come back, Wayne. Okay. Okay, we will have a closed session. It shouldn't last very long. We'll take just a couple of minutes for everybody who needs either a water refill or a bio break, and we will resume shortly then. Thank you. Are we off YouTube now, Bamber?
Not yet. We'll read the resolution to go into closed and
Okay.
then we'll end it.
Okay, have we got everybody back? Charles, I guess we're waiting for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There he is. Okay. So item 20, closed session of council. Moving into closed session, be resolved, the council of the corporation of town of Bancroft is hereby moved into closed session pursuant to the Municipal Act SO 2001, Section 239 2C, a proposal or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality, and K, a position plan procedure criteria or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by and on behalf of the municipality, general nature, municipal property, and legal agreements. Could I have a mover and a seconder there, please?